Welcome to the Creative Synergy Show, where we're talking about mind body wellness for writers and other creative professionals. As always, I'm your host, Coach Sin, and I will be leading you on your personal wellness journey. Today, we're going to be talking about crafting character arcs and your own wellness narrative. So let's get into it. Let me ask you a question, just straight off the jump. If your life were a novel, what kind of character arc would you have? I'm sure we've all thought about this at times. Maybe not necessarily a novel, but a lot of times people say if my life were a movie, it would be a tragedy or a comedy or so forth. You know, the dual masks that we see all the time representing theater. But if you, for my fellow authors out there, if you really wanted to think about what type of character arc you would have in your own novel, what would that look like? And the other question on the back of that I would ask you is, are you happy with it? If not, let's discover why. And the reason that I'm asking this is because the same principles that create memorable characters in novels, they can be applied to your own life as well. And especially as it relates to a wellness journey. A lot of times people have trouble starting out getting healthier, and it's because they are a little bit lost. Now, it's the same thing as developing a character in a book. Sometimes you got to get out of the stumbling blocks before you actually can, get to the meat of the character. But if you use certain tips and tricks for both instances, you can come up with a character that is triumphant in the end. And that applies to your own life as well. For those who don't know or who need a little bit of a reminder, what is a character arc? Well, a character arc is the internal transformation of a character throughout a story. If you don't have a character developing in ways that are actually growing them or changing them in some way, they kind of fall flat. You never want to start out a story with a character and he or she stays linear throughout the whole thing. People read novels and get into characters and really get attached to them because of that growth, because it mirrors their own growth in some way, or somebody they know, or in some way, shape, or form they can relate to what the character is going through. Now, why is that? Well, let's take a look at some different character arcs, and we can get into the meat of why that is. So, an example of a positive character change within a novel is let's classic novel Pride and Prejudice. So Elizabeth Bennet overcomes prejudice. It says it right there in the title. It's baked right in. People are expecting um very specific in that realm of novel, of literary fiction, that it's going to be deep and it's going to be reflective. And obviously, Pride and Prejudice delivers on that. Now, a negative or tragic character arc is another thing that you can relate to novels. This would be more along the lines of Shakespeare and Macbeth. So there's core elements of a character development or arc that actually can really relate to an individual, especially as they're starting out on a health and wellness journey. When a character starts out, and this usually goes hand in hand with the chosen one theory, they are living some sort of a lie. Maybe they don't believe in themselves, or they don't know that they are more powerful than they are actually living in this instance. Now, who can relate to that in their real lives? People throw around the words imposter syndrome all the time, but it basically just is a sense of, not believing in yourself to the degree of, it starts to impact your thought patterns and your activity level because you don't think you can get from A to B. And this is how most characters start out in their story. But now something changes along the way. That's called the inciting incident, right? Something changes or affects the character in some way that they have to change. Now, as it relates to your own wellness narrative, well, hopefully you haven't gotten to this level, but that impact or that change or that inciting incident that's going to spark you to move forward into your wellness journey could be as impactful as a negative health issue. A disease has sprung up. You got a bad, medical report back. Again, hopefully that's not an issue. So let's just relate it to maybe something small, as in aches and pains are starting to develop and overwhelm you to the sense where you can no longer do the things that you enjoy doing. So with these inciting incidents, it springs the character forward into the path that they are meant to be on. And the same can be said if you capitalize on it correctly. The same can be said for your own wellness journey. If you use those incidents to propel you towards change. So let's break this down and look at it as if you were the protagonist in your own story, because you are. So let's ask yourself a couple of questions that may be holding you back. Like, what is the lie you might be believing about your own story? Is that, this, and again, goes hand in hand with the imposter syndrome, is if you're only putting out 100% effort, if you're only consistently productive, that's the only value that you have. Or you're only valuable if you're giving all the time, or you can't rest because it's lazy. A lot of different lies you can be telling yourself. The biggest one is, I can't. The mind is a hell of a thing. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So think about that when you tell yourself that, when you're starting out on some kind of new journey, particularly in health and wellness, because this is an obstacle that people are, it's something that people are leaning more into in 2026, but it's also kind of scary when you first start out. So most people want results immediately. And if they don't see them, they're like, well, I can't do it. Well, you haven't tried everything yet. So let's talk about the things that you can try to get yourself further progressed in your own story. Whether we're writers or not, we make sense of life through storytelling. We adapt to stories, incidents, and memories that happen in our mind. They play back like stories seen from our point of view, because again, we are our own protagonist. So the story that you're telling yourself can be impacting you in many different ways. Authors especially are attuned to this particular skill set, and we can't help it. We're creative in that way. So at least for me, my mind will go in like 10 different directions, listing all the possible variables of a situation before determining that none of them are going to happen. Sometimes you just need to let life play out. Sometimes you just need to write and flow so that your character can explore their own journey and surprise you with the things that happen along the way, which is a really rewarding part of writing. And it can also be really rewarding in your own life if you let go. I have a nasty habit of trying to control everything. And you can't do that, because if you're holding on too tightly, essentially you suffocate things. You need to let it breathe so that it can expand out and like present new ideas to you. So if you're super in control of your wellness right out of the gate, if you're trying to, count your calories and weigh everything, it's too controlling and it's not going to last. You need to let it breathe a little bit and take smaller steps into the bigger picture. This is where outlining comes in when you're creating your characters. We all know they're going to go on this little journey, but what happens in between is what is going to be where the development is built. Again, that can go into your own personal life as well. Write out goals as if they were your plot points throughout your own journey, your own novel. Write them down and journal. What do you want this to look like? What do you want your story to look like? What is the end goal or the ending of the story that you're trying to accomplish? It's the same correlation as if you were writing a novel, what is the end goal for your character? So the author Joseph Campbell touched on this remarkably well. He speaks on the hero's journey, and essentially it starts with the call to adventure, like I said before. Along the way, there are trials, and we have trials in everyday life as well. Nothing is ever going to go as smoothly as you think that it is. And inevitably, something's going to come up that you weren't expecting. Within those trials and in the terms of a character story arc, eventually there's a tipping point, a dip, where things look really, really bleak into an abyss of sorts. But this is where transformation happens. So a lot of the times when we as human beings are affected negatively and a situation impacts us in a certain way, we tend to think in the moment that we're never going to get out of it. Why is this happening to me? I'm being punished in some way. But the truth of the matter is it's all part of your growth and your transformation. The same as the character arc. These situations that you put the character in are meant to build and change them so that they can become that hero at the end of the story. More often than not, you can see, and especially young adult type stories, they are not in tune with their powers, and then by the end of the story they're a full-fledged hero. So think about that on your own character arc and journey into wellness. You're starting out maybe not in tune with exactly what you can do yet, but it takes progress and getting through these challenges to lead to that transformation. What is your goal? And please feel free to write this down, journal it. It helps to put it down on paper or in your computer or what have you. You can even do voice notes, but if you just get the thought processes rolling, especially as writers to write, it'll help you along the way. So if you determine what your character goal is, what does that look like for you? What does that look like in the end as well? So we're going to start off with the end and work backwards. The other thing we need to focus on is the what ifs. What if I don't reach my goal? The only reason I want you to do this is to get it out of your head, get it out of the way, and stop thinking about it. So write down a lot of the things that might prevent you from reaching that goal, such as I don't have time, I don't have the experience that I need, I don't have the knowledge or skills, I'm too busy, all the things that have kept you from reaching your goals, lack of motivation, stuff like that, and see where the through line is and how you can divert this negativity into a more positive approach. If you say you don't have time, well, what if you didn't have time to write either? More often than not, we'll find the time for the things that we love to do. So think about that as you write down the barriers that you have so far have been in your way. And now once you've done that and you've decided you're not going to let these hold you back anymore, now we get to do the fun part. We get to do the midpoint reversal. And this is where the character starts to really grow and say, you know what? I am not this loser, for lack of a better word. I am actually the chosen one, and I can, and it's up to me to save the world or so forth. And in this case, in your own wellness narrative, it's up to you to save you. Nobody can do the work for you. This is where you're going to start making a schedule. When you're going to work out, when are you going to get the needed self-care and rest and recovery? When are you going to prep your meals? How are you going to prep your meals? What tools do you need? What knowledge and skills? Who can you reach out to help you to develop the program that you need to establish your goals at the end of the day? So I want to end today's episode with something a little bit fun. It's a writing prompt for you. And I already said, to be journaling all of this and to be writing down a structure for you to create your own character arc on your wellness journey. So a lot of the times, most of the times, especially if you're an indie author, the back cover copy or the synopsis of the book needs to be written. And this is a culmination of the entire story. What I want you to do, if you should be so brave, but this will only, help you on your journey, both in writing and in wellness. Write the current back cover copy of your creative life as it is right now. And then go back and read it over and ask yourself, is this the story I really want to tell? If it's not, write a different updated version of it set in the future of when you've achieved that goal. So you are your own main character and you've reached within the story, you've reached that goal. So now rewrite that synopsis or that back cover copy and make it in a way that's going to be the story that you want to tell, that you want to live. So this is just a fun little writing prompt to get your juices flowing and to get you excited about this journey that you're about to go on. So just a reminder for you, you're not, as a writer or an author, you're not just an architect of a character that you're writing in your fictional novel. You're the architect of your own life as well. We have free will for a reason, so use it wisely. And, when we write characters that are brave and willing to change. So give yourself permission to be that same character. That's it for this edition of the Creative Synergy Podcast. Join me next time for more tips and tricks for whole body health, and show's over, Synergy.